work is we're gonna go through, I'm gonna go through all the exercises with Keen, and then I'm gonna show you a routine. And then, and that's gonna be what I'm gonna post on Facebook, on the Facebook group, and I'll also send it out in an email. And you're also gonna get a paper copy with everything written down, and then the link, you'll see on the second page when it gets emailed to you. It's not on there now because I have to edit it, but there'll be the video of the individual exercises, which I'm going to do now, and then there's going to be a video of the combined plan. So how I, like on my fitness days, how I would do my plan on those days. Okay. So just a couple things with fitness. Why do we do it? That question got brought up. And it's really, one thing is I think it's just good brain food for the dogs. It's something different. It's something that they're not doing. The other thing is that fitness works smaller muscle groups. So I'm a big advocate for that. But, the other thing is, you know, I attribute Pepper's ability to perform as well as she did for as long as she did due to how fit she was prior to us finding out what was wrong with her. So, and I think that's the case for any animal, is if if we become weekend warriors where our dogs are just doing agility once or twice a week, or they're going to a trial. And recently, one of the reasons I pulled him from a trial was, one of the big reasons was because I'd only worked him once in an entire month, and I'm not going to take him and do 5 or 6 runs a day if I've only trained him once in a whole month, because my schedule just was crazy in August. So anyway, so we want to make sure that our dogs are fit. And I was recently talking to Bobby Lyons, who I still do fitness classes with for my more advanced dogs, and we were talking about stamina. And one of the things that I've noticed with Pepper especially is that, you know, in the first part of her, and I see it in dogs in class all the time, the first part of the exercise, or the first part of the agility sequence, they're doing good, they've got a lot of energy, and then that just starts to really plummet as they progress through class. Some of that is due to the heat, but I think a lot of it this time of year for the dogs is due to the fact that we're very limited on our activities. We're not as active with our dogs. We're not necessarily taking them on as many walks or hikes because it gets hot. And so one of the exercises we're going to do today and for this month is we're going to work on stamina for the dogs. So the way fitness works, and those of you that were in the class last time in August, you heard some of this. One is I always want to make sure my dog's warmed up, and I will include in the email that goes out, I will include a warm-up routine. Okay, and that's true for any activity that you're going to do with your dog. So before you do your come to class, or before you go home and you're working your dogs at home, you should warm them up. So I'll send my warm-up routine, but the big thing is that you want your warm-up to mimic the activity that you're going to do. So agility is a lot of bursts of speed. I need to implement that in my warm-up activity. I need to implement forward and backward movement, which is medial movement, lateral movement, side to side, and then transverse movement, which is what we call twisting of the spine, which sounds horrible. But if you think about when your dog goes over a jump and they turn, the front end of their body is going one way and the rear end of their body is going the other way, and that's transverse movement. You also see transverse movement in a little bit in weave pulls, so when the dogs are going through the weaves. But those are, or let's say you have a 2-on 2-off contact and they're coming down the A-frame and you're off to the side, you might have some twisting there too. So, but anyway, you guys will get the warm-up and cool-down routine, and you can just watch the video and let me know if you have any questions. So you want to spend at least about 5 to 10 minutes warming up your dog, and then you're ready to start the activity. So what I'm going to have you guys do is you can kind of just hang out back there in the shade behind Dominique while she's videoing, and I'm going to go through the exercises because part of this is using this area here. So what you're going to need this month is some kind of platform. okay? Some kind of bench, exercise bench. It can be, Hope has one out on the field, like a raised dog bed, that you can use that. You can use an aerobic bench. You can use a folded up blanket. You don't have to have the fancy stuff. Although I do really like the Cato boards. The big thing is you want to make sure, especially because we have dogs, we have 3 big dogs here in class. So you want to make sure that it's long enough for the dog to be able to stand in a natural position, okay? And I want to make sure it's stable. So I don't want it to wobble or bend, but it needs to be long enough. And that's why if you don't have anything, you can actually use like those big dog beds. Like I said, you can use a folded up blanket, but it's got to be something that is different from from the ground, okay? Although all of these exercises can be done on the ground too. So don't feel like I mean, when we work on foundation work, when we work on foundation work, we start it all on the flat. So your first exercise on here is when we go through our exercises, you'll see on your sheet, you have balance exercises, you have strength exercises, you have cardio, you have mental, and you have flexibility, okay? And some of them are interchangeable. So some of them, when you're working on balance, you're also working on flexibility, like this first one, for instance. So, but the big thing is you want to make sure you're covering all the different exercises. So I've warmed my dog up, okay, and he's ready to go. And I actually did warm him up this morning before we started. So your first exercise, and like I said, some of this you might have to work on the flat first, but your first exercise is going to it's flexibility and balance. But you're going to have the dog circle each direction, but they have to stay on the platform, okay? Okay, so I don't want his feet to come off, okay? It doesn't have to be fast. In fact, I would rather it be slow, okay? But the big thing is I don't want my dog stepping off the platform, okay? Good points, okay? Good, left, good, okay? And so when he comes back into position, I actually want to give him a minute to find balance, okay? So I'm going to say left, and he's standing, and I'm going to let him. My biggest problem is I lack the ability to stop and let my dog find balance. So we never want the dog to use momentum to get through these exercises, and we always want them to be, we're working on proprioception and making sure that the dog's aware of where their feet are. So in the beginning, you might just lure it, but the hard thing with the lure, okay, and what I would suggest is maybe taking the dog off the platform and luring it and then putting them on the platform. But if your dog is paying attention too closely to what's in your hand and they're not paying any attention to what their feet are doing, then you're going to have to work on just getting them to turn left and right on a physical cue or a verbal cue first, and then try to add it back in there. Those of you that remember Dixie, I couldn't work with food when I did fitness with her. I had to have it in a bowl behind me and grab it and reward her, because if I put anything in my hand, she lost all awareness of what her body was doing. But you're gonna go 3 times each direction. Okay, that's 1 set. So 3 times, that's 3 repetitions each direction, and that equals 1 set. Okay. So most of your exercises you do 2 to 3 sets, all right? So what I do is I do 1 set and then I rest, or I move on to another exercise. And then from there, and then when I go through all the exercises, then I start over again, okay? So I do 1 exercise and I just kind of go down my list. When you guys are doing your plan, 3 to 4 times a week is good. All right, if you can hit that, if you can do the fitness plan 3 to 4 times a week, you're doing better than me. Okay, I get maybe 1 or 2, but because you don't want to go and do a whole bunch of fitness and then come and do a bunch of agility training, or go for a long hike and then go home and do fitness. I mean, you have to be, and that's the other good point, is you want to make sure you're building in rest to your dog on their activities. So if you're doing agility 4 days a week, you need to at least 1 or 2 days of rest built in there where the dog isn't doing much of anything, maybe a walk or something that's not high intense activity. Okay, so that's circle left and right on the platform. Your next exercise is hemi stands. Okay, come on, please. I like to do this on a platform, and come stand. And the most important thing is that you want to make sure that when you do this, you're lifting, and Dom, you might want to come up here, is you're lifting the dog's, I'm going to physically help the dog. So he's on it in a stand, and I'm going to hold his feet and just gently hold his feet and have him balance on that one side, okay, for 15 to 20 seconds. He's like, you're not going to do toenails. Okay, and then I'm going to do the other side. Stand, stay. You guys can see what I'm doing, right? So the big thing is make sure, whoops. Okay, and the platform helps bring the dog, or it helps kind of define the space, but you might need to, I'm going to take him off the platform. Maybe that'll help him. Come here, buddy. He is not a foot dog. So then the other thing, so make sure, so I just have his front foot looped over my finger. I'm not like forcing it, and I'm just holding him up gently. But that, you can see, that's hard for him. He's having a hard time. So if your dog is having a hard time, you are only going to hold it for maybe 5 seconds. Okay, and then over the course of the month, you'll build that up.
Is it okay to start with just one?
You can, yeah, absolutely. So you can do so the question was, is it okay to start with one? And absolutely, you can start with a front foot and then a rear foot and then work your way around and then add the 2. So there's 2 parts to this. One is both legs on one side, and then you're gonna go diagonal. So then I'm gonna hold his left front and his right hind, and see how I'm just gently holding him up, and I can feel him weight shifting his weight, but I'm not holding his leg out. You want to make sure that you're holding their legs right up underneath him. That's a little bit easier for him. Okay, and I'm going to do the other side. Okay, so I'm going to hold that and hold the rear foot, and that one's a lot easier for him than the same side. Okay, so I'm going to go back and try the same side and see if maybe yeah, this is hard because I can feel him. He's actually really leaning on my hands.
Is he leaning on you?
He's losing. So what I'm feeling is that I'm holding, so if I'm holding these ones up, he's like, I can feel him shifting it. He's trying to find balance. So that's hard for him. It's kind of like, you know, when many of us have gone to PT for one reason or another, and they have us stand on that donut, and the first time you do it, your legs like doing this, and you're gonna fall over, and then over time you build up strength. Well, what you're doing is you're engaging all those tiny little parts of that joint, all those muscle groups, and you're building up the strength to be able to stand and find balance without toppling over. So over time your dog will do the same, but that's a good exercise for him. So I usually make these plans and then I do it with my dogs for the month. So okay, so that is your hemi stands, okay? And then the next one is your lateral step. You're gonna have the dog start on the platform, and you're gonna have them side pass off of it, okay? So that's my lateral motion. Then side pass on it, stand to down. When you do these stand to downs, I really don't want any foot movement, okay? See how all 4 of his feet are staying in place? Then I'm gonna have him side pass the other way, because, and here's what I wanna show you guys. when he is stepping off of it, that's lateral movement. But when he goes to step on it, so he's stepping off of it, lateral movement, and now we're gonna step on it, I get that little bit of transverse movement when he lifts up his leg. If your dog doesn't side pass, just work on side passing. Don't work on this yet. But I find oftentimes with agility dogs that it's easy to teach them to side pass to a platform because they understand getting on and off equipment. Okay, so I'm just standing perpendicular to him, kind of using pressure to get him off of it, and then I do my stand to downs. Okay, so that's your lateral movement. And like I said, if your dog doesn't understand side passing, and when we go over there, we're going to work through some of this, then and I'll help you with some ideas, and then but you can always just start on the flat. All right. Okay, then when they're on the platform, you're going to do a rock back sit. So this is different from a tuck sit. I like the rock back sit because it's it works on range of motion in the shoulders. So he's going to sit, and the only thing that's going to move are his front feet. Stand. Sit. Okay. Stand. See how he walks forward, and then he walks his front feet back. Sit. Okay, and then forward. Okay, stand. Okay, come here, buddy. And remember, you have to pause in between them. That's where one of my downfalls is I get going really fast. I'm like, down sit, down sit. Okay, and if you think about like a bicep curl, it's the same thing. When you start using momentum for that dumbbell, then you're not engaging the muscle. So if you don't pause and rest, your dog is not engaging that muscle, okay? So your rock back sits to stand, you're gonna do 6 to 8 reps of those, okay? And then while they're here, you're gonna do pop-ups, okay? And pop-ups it's something you see a lot in the fitness plans right now. You have to have a hand touch or nose touch. If not, you can use food. But basically, what I want is I want the dog to pop up using their hind feet to push off as opposed to their front feet to pull, okay? Pop, 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 pop. Okay, you see that? Pop, 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 pop. See how he's kind of light on his front end? That tells me that he's using his hind feet or his hind end he's engaging his core and he's using his hind feet to pop up. Pop, pop.
What's like the maximum height you want them to go?
Like 6 inches.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to be up here.
Like have him fully extend up.
Pop, wait, pop, 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 pop. Yeah, I don't want him to be any more than maybe 6 or 8 inches. Okay. All right, so your pop-ups, you're gonna do 4 to 6 reps, okay? For cardio, I generally don't do a lot of cardio with my agility students because you guys do a lot with your dogs. But the flexibility exercise is actually going to work cardio, and you'll see that in a second. And we always add a mental component. For that part, it's going to be your mental component is something that the dog doesn't fully understand, and you need to train. Okay, so for instance, I think one of the ones that we see sometimes is those people that want to teach a sit pretty. You'll do a sit pretty. You'll work it every other day, and you'll set a timer and only work for like 2 minutes because it's really engages their core. But what I've done for you guys is I've made this a handler choice. So on the second page, there's a whole list of all these exercises that are fitness, foundation behaviors commonly used in fitness, like a nose touch hold, stand, down to sit, tuck sit, kick back stand, all those things. And if you guys need ideas on how to teach them, I have videos. So if you see something on here on the list that you're like, I'm really struggling with that, let me know and I'll send you a video of it, okay? And then the last one is flexibility. And again, this is cardio. And this is something that Bobby and I had a long conversation about. You can use 2 trees in your backyard. You can use 2 cones. But basically what I want is I want the dog to do figure 8s, moving as fast as they can and really powering out, which might include you guys needing to move. Okay, not you guys, but I mean, like when you're doing the exercise, you guys might need to actually run with your dog, okay? So it's good for all of us. But basically, I think all of you guys your dogs understand how to circle a cone or circle a wing. They're agility dogs, so they know that. So in the beginning stages, you can start with, I just want to make sure that I'm rehearsing this correctly. but you can start with your cones about 15 to 20 feet apart, and then you want to build up. And what you're going to do is, once your dog is fluent with this behavior and they're going back and forth really fast, I want you to time it, okay? And I want you to see if, when you do these, if you can get your dog to go faster or if they start slowly losing time. So you're only going to do this about maybe 2 to 5 times, because especially when you get to a space this big, okay? And but when your dog's fluent and moving back and forth, I want you to start timing it, and when you start noticing your time declining, I want you to stop one ahead of that. Okay, does that make sense? So if I do 4 total times, and my first 3 times are fast and they're within 5 seconds of each other, but then the last one was like, or let's say 3 seconds of each other, and then the last one was like 5 or more seconds, then the next couple times I do this exercise, I'm only going to do it 3 times. And then after that, then I'm going to see if I can progressively, you're working on stamina, so you're working on building up your dog's stamina in this exercise. All right, ready? Want to do it? Huh? Want to do it? So and again, it might be something where you need to teach the dog to wrap a tree. Okay. Ready, go. Yeah, get it. So we were playing around with this, and I'm just going to show him each tree that I want him to wrap first. Okay, and like I said, this is a big distance, so this is kind of what you're working up towards if you have the space. Ready? Go. Dig. Go. Dig. Yes. Come on, go. Dig. Yay! Oh, cheater! Go. Dig. Yes! Come on. Go. Dig. Whoa! You got that on video,
Yes,
right?
of course we did.
All right, humans can't get hurt. But so let's go over here, because I can use these 2 trees.
So Kim doesn't murder herself.
Yeah. A little less.
Keener Beaner, let's go.
Come here, buddy. Ready? Go. Dig. Yes. Go. Dig. Yes. Dig. So that's a good distance for him. Okay. But you can use cones, you can use jump wings, you can use trash cans. Start with them 15 to 20 feet apart, and then gradually add, I would say let's see here, add about 5 feet until you get, like your little dogs, you're probably not going to want to go more than 20 feet.
And 30 is the max I've got.
Okay, and then your big dogs, you can work up to something like that if you have the room. Okay? But you're going to do figure 8, back and forth, and like I said, time them and see if you can't start making progression. This is a really good warm-up exercise too, because you've got the bursts of speed, you've got the circling of the trees, you're actually doing front crosses, so it's good for the handler as long as you don't fall down. Okay, and just get the dog to go back and forth. Questions?